I mean, on that question of this tactic, putting this forward that we're planning to resign, or that the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation has signed that, Nkwana Mashabane, would that hold a lot of sway in the Constitutional Court for us to say, as the state or the lawyers for the state, well, we're already leaving, it's 12 months, we just kind of sit out the time for now? What happens in the legal kind of argument?
Well, I think, as we said right at the very beginning, this is a fundamental principle relating to the separation of powers. And this potentially is one of the most important cases that the Constitutional Court has heard so far, because it goes to the very heart of our Constitution about who has the power to exercise responsibility in various issues. And to weaken the ability of Parliament to determine binding issues relating to fundamental human rights, to relating to South Africa's responsibilities, is critical. And we think that this case is something that the court will have to consider and will have to take a decision to guide us in terms of what the powers of the legislature are vis-à-vis the powers of the executive. The Constitution says that the government can negotiate and discuss treaties, but ultimately the final decision to give binding effect to those treaties is Parliament. You will be aware that there is a two-stage process when we deal with international treaties and agreements. First is the signature of that, which is done by government. It evinces an intent to be bound by it, but it has no binding power on its own. It is only after Parliament has ratified that decision that South Africa is then bound by the provisions of that agreement. So Parliament plays a critical role in that, and that's a role that we think that the Constitutional Court needs to emphasize.
So there's a two-step process for being a signatory or being a kind of member state.
Being bound by.
Yes, being bound by. So then in order to retreat or withdraw, one has to, you argue, go two steps back. So you start in the executive, you start in Parliament. Once you have consensus there, then you can go to the point where the minister can sign the notice to withdraw.
The example of the United States is a good one. When Bill Clinton was still president, they signed the Rome Statute.
Okay.
When President Bush came into power, they decided not to ratify, and they therefore withdrew their signature. But there was no binding effect on the US at that time.
It was just an intent.
It's unfortunate that they have chosen not to ratify. I'm not supporting that decision at all, but I'm just demonstrating, using that as a mechanism to demonstrate how the signature and the ratification have different legal effects.
Yes.